What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So it's obviously Tuesday, which means it is tier list Tuesday, and I have previously done the defensemen, the centers, and the wingers, and I wasn't really thinking about doing the goalies considering I do my top 20 goalies in the NHL every 6 months. You kind of get a good idea of 2/3 of what the list would look like, but considering we are a month and a half removed from my top 20, more games have been played, and a bunch of you guys did want me to do tier listing every team's starting goalie. We're doing it today. We're going through all 32 starting goalies in the NHL. How I quantified this was mainly who played the most games, but obviously there's some incidents like an Aiden Hill that got hurt, but he is Vegas's number one. Charlie Lindgren, I have instead of Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper has played one more game, but Lindgren obviously has kind of stole the starting job from Darcy Kemper. So a couple maybe toss-up guys that you might, it's not as straightforward as just time on ice leaders. There is maybe some contentious picks, but if there are any contentious picks, it's not like the placement on the tiers. I'm not like intentionally snubbing one team by putting an absolute trash guy in. There's really not that much of a difference. So let's get into it. We got elite, very good, good, solid, meh, solid slash meh, and then we got just straight up bad, straight up ass. You can probably guess which goaltenders are going to go down there. So let's get into it. First up, Alex Lyon. I'm going to go in good. He has a .916 save percentage this year. Last year, at the end of last year, he basically got the Florida Panthers into the playoffs. He went like 6-0-1 down the stretch with like a .935. So based on that end of the year play as well as this year, I don't think that he's a legit top 15, top 10 guy, definitely not in the NHL, but could you make a strong argument for him being a top 20 guy in the NHL in between that 15 to 20 range? I think it's definitely possible at this point, and he has a year left on his deal at like $900,000. It's an absolute steal for the Detroit Red Wings, so he's probably closer to solid meh than very good, but at this point, I would say he's a good starter. Tristan Jarry, a very controversial guy, but when you look at him over the last 5 seasons, he's posted at least a .909 save percentage every single year. I think over the last 5 seasons, it's about like a .914, .915. So although he does make some critical, horrible mistakes, especially in the playoffs, in the regular season, you're not going to find, for the most part, a more consistent goalie besides like the top 5, top 6 guys in the NHL. He is very consistent. I think you need to put him in very good, even though people definitely have valid criticisms towards Tristan Jarry. Igor Shesterkin, I still have him in elite. He's playing much better, especially of late. I think his last 3 games, he's allowed only 1 goal and has had 35-plus saves in every single game. He has a .909 save percentage on the season, but that was 3-4 weeks ago. That was like an .899. He's playing much better of late. Obviously, he's won a Vezina before, and prior to the season was a no-doubt top 5 guy. So even though this is a down year, his worst year yet in the NHL, definitely still an elite guy. Mackenzie Blackwood, you could maybe put him in good. He's playing very good on the San Jose Sharks. I'm going to put him in solid just because he was so bad in prior years in New Jersey. If he's playing like this at this time next year, I honestly would probably bump him up to good. The numbers are not that impressive. He has a .998 save percentage, but considering he's playing on the San Jose Sharks, that's probably like a .905, .906, .907 on most teams. He's kind of flying under the radar this year. Korpisalo definitely gets one of the bad spots. He has an .887 save percentage, was brought in to be the Ottawa Senators at least 1A, at worst 1B. Over the next 5 seasons, he has $4 million, 5 seasons. It's looking like an absolute disaster. They're probably going to have to potentially buy him out or trade him this summer. He has been one of the main reasons why the Ottawa Senators have been a massive disappointment, so he no doubt goes in bad. Markstrom, I'm going to go very good just because this guy yo-yos nonstop. 2 years ago, Vezina runner-up, fantastic. Last year would have been in probably like the bad category. I think he had like an 892. This year, yet again, playing very good. In between, he's in the ranges of a 910. I want to say he has a 914 save percentage on not that good of a Calgary Flames team. So he's definitely reestablished himself at the bare minimum, a top 12 goalie in the NHL, probably into the top 10. Elvis Merzlikins, solid meh. He was playing really good at the start of the season. He had like a 910 on a pretty horrible Columbus team. It has kind of gone down of late. Definitely an okay, solid starter, but I wouldn't say after the last 3 years. He was very good, I think maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, but since then his play kind of has cratered, so I think solid meh is a solid spot for him. Stuart Skinner, also just too inconsistent. I would say he's solid, but He has 2 months of absolute brilliance, starts the season off like absolute shit for a month, then 2 years of greatness and the greatness. He had like a 934 save percentage over 2 months. It basically was greatness, even though the Oilers were also playing great. But then the most recently 5 or 6 games, he has a goddamn 860 save percentage, 4.5 goals against. Like, he's far too inconsistent that I cannot put him at good, even though he definitely has very good stretches. The lows are just so low with the Stuart Skinner. We've definitely seen that over the last year and a half, year and 3/4 at this point. Vasilevsky having an even bigger down year than an Igor Shesterkin, but in my opinion, it's going to take him 2 really down seasons to bump him out of that elite category, considering for the last 6 or 7 years, he's been pretty easily a top 3 goalie in the NHL. Last year was probably the first year that he fell out of a top 3 in just that season, but I still have him in my top 5 overall. Let's wait until let's see another offseason of him maybe recovering from that surgery that he had, and then we can maybe bump him down. But right now, even with an 899 that he has, he's still an elite goalie. Ilya Sorokin, another elite guy, similarly to Shesterkin. They both have a 909 save percentage, but I still think after the track record that they've built up, Sorokin having a 925 2 years ago, 924 last year, Vezina runner-up, you're definitely not taking him out of the elite category. There's not like 7 goalies that you would pick over Ilya Sorokin, even with his play this year. Martin Jones, you could probably go with Samsonov for this as well. I'm just going to put him in solid meh. He's perfectly fine, has a 907 this year. Not going to be an absolute stud. I wouldn't have the most faith in him heading into the playoffs, but he's acceptable. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing in there. Just don't allow any dumb goals, and you'll be fine. Philip Gustafsson, also solid meh. Last year, obviously fantastic. Had a 930. Started off really rough this season, playing better of late in his last 15, 16 starts. He has a solid like 910, but again, just far too sporadic. Last year might have been the best 30, probably going to be the best 39 game stretch that we see in his entire career, and that's not a slight. He had a goddamn 930. I still think that he is somewhere between that top 17 to 23 goalie in the entire NHL. So right now, after the down year, I'm going to put him in solid to meh. Jordan Binghamton, I'm going to put him in good. He's playing very good this season. He has a 909 on not that good of a St. Louis Blues team. I think it's like 10 goals saved above expected right now. He is a massive reason why the Blues are firmly in the wild card hunt. Are they in the last spot right now? I don't know. It's between them and Nashville, and he is a massive reason why. Him and why am I blanking on the name? Joel Hofer. Him and Joel Hofer are quietly forming one of the best goalie duos in the entire NHL. I was not expecting that. Even though Hofer was a pretty high-level goalie prospect, they've been very good. Montembeault, he's been rough of late. He has, I believe, like an 880 over his last 10 games. He was playing very good the first 20 games of the season, but he has fallen off a little bit. He is close to that good. I would have him over probably Blackwood, Jones, basically almost everybody in this tier besides maybe Gustafsson and Skinner. He's solid. He's still young. I think he's eventually definitely going to get into that good tier, but recent play has kind of tampered him down a little bit overall. Ottinger, very good. Similarly to a Shesterkin, to a Sorokin, to a Vasilevsky, having a bit of a down year, only a 904 save percentage. But when you look at what the guy did in prior years, had a 911 as a rookie, then a 914, then a 919, has that playoff experience. I still think he is definitely a top 12 goal in the NHL, even though he hasn't taken that next step that we expected from him, like we see from another guy that's going to be, you can't even see him right now, that's going to be on, that was in the same draft class as him, that has taken that next step. Ottinger still hasn't really, so I would have him in very good, definitely not elite. Saros, still elite, even with, again, similarly, I feel like a lot of the elite guys, in my opinion, are having a bit of a down year. But when looking at Saros over the prior 3 seasons, he had like 140 starts in like a 920 save percentage. So I still think with that track record, you'd be foolish. And there's a reason why teams are reaching out, trying to trade for him. If he gets traded, it's going to be an absolute haul because people know that this guy is still a top 8, top 7 goalie. And when he's on his game, probably a top 3 goalie in the NHL. Connor Ingram, good. Obviously, the Coyotes have kind of been in free fall before that. He was seriously in the Vezina discussion. He had a 916 save percentage. It's down to a 911. But I still think going forward, he's somewhere between that top 13 to 18 goalie in the entire NHL. Very solid, very solid. 911 save percentage. He's solid. Vejmelka has kind of been the disappointment, but Ingram has kind of made up for that for how good and promising that he's been. Charlie Lindgren, this is tough. I'm going to go, he started off obviously insane this season. He had a 930 in his first like 15 starts. It has kind of gone down. I'm going to go solid meh. He doesn't have that track record. Well, he does have a track record of just being an okay backup. So I do think his first 15, 20 games of the season was just him playing the best hockey of his goddamn life. I still think he's a solid 1B going forward. Is he a true starter? I personally don't think so, but he's better than definitely better than some of these guys that are in solid meh. Joey Daccord, good, playing like a top 10 goalie in the entire NHL. Also, he lacks the track record of a Charlie Lindgren, but Lindgren's track record is like not that good, if that makes sense. Joey Daccord really burst onto the scene. He's obviously younger. He's only 26 years old, I believe. So similar to a Connor Ingram, this is kind of his coming out party as a top 20 goalie in the entire NHL, maybe even top 15 if he can complete this season with the numbers that he has right now. I'm going to go with good. Sam Ersson, solid meh. You're going to realize the solid and meh category is pretty big. Ersson was playing fantastic when it was him and Carter Hart kind of swapping starts, a more evenly distributed starting schedule. But since he's kind of since he's kind of had to be that number one now that Carter Hart's on an indefinite leave of absence, Ersson, the workload has kind of caught up to him, and some of his stats has kind of staggered, has gotten absolutely shelled in some games since like January 22nd, January 23rd. I still think he has a ton of potential going forward, but right now, just a solid around top 20 to 25 goalie in the entire NHL. Mrazek's been good this year. The track record obviously is not there the last like 2 to 3 years. Obviously, he's had a very good career overall. He's playing good, honestly. The fact that the numbers that he has, I believe he has a 9-11 save percentage on the Chicago Blackhawks. You got to put him in good. That is absolutely insane how much he has carried the Chicago Blackhawks this year. Will he absolutely suck next year? Perfectly reasonable, but he's at a nice little resurgence. Thatcher Demko, I think this season Thatcher Demko has entered that elite category. You look at him 2 seasons ago and 3 seasons ago, had a 915 save percentage, was a top 10-ish goalie in the entire NHL. Last year, horrendous start, went on LTIR for like 3 months, came back, was solid again. And then this year, 917 save percentage. I believe he's leading the entire NHL in wins. I know wins is more of a team stat, but still, he's playing fantastic. He's a major reason why the Canucks are first in the entire NHL. And he has established himself as a Vezina candidate, Vezina runner-up probably this year, and going forward, a top 8 goalie in the entire NHL. Hellebuck, back-to-back. Hellebuck's probably the best goalie in the entire NHL. I don't think that that's controversial considering he's been fantastic the prior 3 years and is playing great. Compare that to a Vasilevsky. Down year, down year, down year. Demko doesn't have the track record. Down year. Like he is pretty much, if you pulled 100 people that weren't fans of any of these teams, I think 90 people might give you Hellebuck that are actually plugged in instead of just like, oh, Vasilevsky won Stanley Cups. I think he's pretty easily the best goalie in hockey right now. Don't think that's controversial. Cam Talbot, again, the solid meh category is just massive right now. When looking at Cam Talbot, his first 17 games, he had a 933 save percentage. We thought, oh, this is like a last dance, like 36 years old, the best hockey of his entire career. Last 36 games, he has an 883, so it's kind of counteracted. I think, well, he's kind of losing the starting job to David Riddick right now, but I think going forward, he can maybe give you like 900 save percentage, 905 save percentage. He's definitely not what we thought he was in the beginning, but he's not that bad. UPL has been really surprising this year. I'm going to go good. Believe he has a 911 save percentage. And since the new year, he has like a 936 in 17 or 18 games, considering how this guy is pretty young. He's finally emerging as that potential starter. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens the next 2 to 3 years with Devin Levi, who was like anointed as the guy, but UPL has really came onto the scene and said, I'm still here. I can still play at a high level. So that's going to be very interesting. Vanacek, he gets one of the bad spots, 890 save percentage, so he's better than Korpisalo right now. But similarly with the Senators, the Devils have been extremely disappointing this year, mainly because of the play of their goalies. It has not been acceptable, regardless whether you have him or Schmid, or Dawes hasn't even played like 10 goddamn games. They've all been pretty bad. Dawes not as bad, but yeah, they're bad. Georgiev, I'm going to go solid / mid. And last year definitely would have been good. Should he have got like a shit ton of, I think he got some Vezina votes. I think that was a little bit overblown. But this year he has an 898 save percentage. The underlying numbers are pretty solid, but I think he's definitely upper meh, if that makes sense. Aiden Hill, I'm going to go very good. If we're just talking last year's playoffs and this year's regular season, he's probably been the best goalie in all of hockey. He has a 927 save percentage, obviously balled out once Brossoit went down in the playoffs. He has been fantastic. If he continues this and carries this into next season, you can make a strong argument for him being an elite. Just doesn't quite have the track record yet, but he has been fantastic. Great player. Very good player. Great of late. Jeremy Swayman, Jeremy Swayman, I'm going to put him in very good right now. He has a longer track record than an Aiden Hill, but still not quite the track record of these guys, even though he's playing. Nah, I'm going to move him up. I'm going to put him in elite. That's fair. No, he's gotten better every single year. This year, he has the same save percentage, but he's playing a lot more of the starts for the Boston Bruins. I think Jeremy Swayman has entered elite category. Would he be? He'd be the last guy. He'd be seventh if I were doing this tier by like rows. But I think at this point, considering he's 24, 25 years old and he's gotten better every single year, and this year he should finish top 5 in Vezina voting, I think you need to have him in elite. Kochetkov's been okay, especially of late. He's actually been very good of late. I'm going to throw him in solid meh right now. Still, I think it is more Carolina's system. Why isn't 9-10? His underlying numbers aren't that impressive. So I think solid meh is fine. Then Gibson as well. Gibson, definitely not a bad goaltender, but people kind of overinflate him considering what he did when he was between the ages of like 23 to 26. Hasn't been the same. Doesn't get the best support on the Anaheim Ducks, but he hasn't really been playing to the level that we expected 3-4 years ago. And then Bobrovsky, I think you got to have him in very good, considering he was probably the best goalie. Yeah, was the best goalie overall in the NHL playoffs last year, Stanley Cup playoffs, as well as this year, having a .916 save percentage. Not going to be a Vezina finalist by any sense, but he's been a top 8 goalie in the entire NHL probably this season. So I think he's had a little bit of a late career resurgence. Obviously, that President's Trophy year, he was very good just because that team was an absolute wagon, but he's proving himself to be a very good goalie at this point. But here it is. I think it's a pretty solid list. I don't think this is that controversial. Maybe like Mrazek and good. Move some of the guys in solid meh up, but there's nothing like too massive in my opinion. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? What tier list should I do next? I'm kind of running out of ideas for the most part, and I'll be seeing the next one.